This week on the show, photographer Rich Sermonello. I'm photographer Brian Fisher.
And I'm model Roxanne Callie.
And this is Model Photography Showcase. Hey Roxanne, we are introducing a classic episode of Model Photography Showcase.
Yeah, I know. We started in 13, so...
Yeah, so this is
a really
our
old one.
first. This is episode 1 back in mid-2013.
Oh my goodness.
And it's crude by today's standards, but we wanted to share all of our old stuff before we start out with some new material this season.
Yeah.
So everybody, please enjoy the somewhat simple but fun episode 1 of Model Photography Showcase.
Enjoy.
Welcome to the show. We have Roxanne and Rich. Hi, Roxanne.
Hello. How are you, Brian?
Good. Today we're featuring photographer Rich Sermonello, which we're going to murder his name over and over again. And he is a photographer out of the San Jose area that does amazing work. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
In our little chat before the show, you were mentioning the fact that you're now editing a magazine. Tell us.
Yes, I'm working as the editor-in-chief of Volo magazine. It's a art, nude, glamour magazine that we produce out of the San Francisco area. So we've done, magazine is 6 issues old. We're working on the 7th one right now. And I took over as editor-in-chief starting with issue number 4.
Very nice.
And, yeah.
Wow, it sounds like it's become really big very quickly.
It actually the last 3 issues have really pushed forward. The original concept was not mine, and I think they had really good steam when they started, and then after a couple of issues they lost a little steam, and then they asked me to join, and we've been pushing forward since then. So it's a lot of work.
How did they discover you? Were you, you're not standing on the street corner going, editor-in-chief?
Yeah, well, actually, I guess they found me through some fashion photography. I was doing some fashion shows, and the owner of Volo, who's now my partner, was familiar with some of my fashion photography and seen some things I'd done in some fashion shows in the Bay Area. So from there, I think he looked at my portfolio and saw I had some art, nude, and other things that he thought would be appropriate.
Beautiful.
So
Absolutely.
So we need to send Roxanne up for a shoot with you.
Sure.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to go straight into looking at some of your pictures. For people that are new to the podcast, this is an enhanced podcast, and if you bring up your album artwork, you'll be able to go along with us and see the pictures, and whenever possible, the pictures will be links where you can click on the picture and it will take you to the model's portfolio. If not, it'll just take you to Rich's portfolio where you can bug him to find the model later. First picture is beautiful. We have a, you can see it. It's a girl on a wall. Tell me about the picture, Rich.
This picture was taken down the street from me in San Jose near the Children's Museum. There's a large children's museum with a little outdoor area, and that's where this wall was.
I often associate children's museums and glamour photography.
Well, I had been working with this model on several shoots. She was a fairly new model at the time. This picture is a few years old, and even now, I think most of her portfolio is about 80% photos that I took of her. But this was it was a nice evening and saw good sunlight, and I wanted to photograph her outside. And I was also trying out some new equipment that night.
The lighting's beautiful. The center light right on the model, and then the back lighting be almost sunset.
Thank you so much, and that is exactly what I was trying out that night. I had just acquired 2 new Vivitar 285 HV flashes that are just they're hot shoe flashes that run on battery, and I had just gotten them and I wanted to use them outside. So I had from the front camera left, I had one of the 285 HVs bouncing into a small umbrella. and from the back to light her, give her the highlight on the back of her shoulder there, and her arm, there was another Vivitar that was just bare.
Excellent.
Really? I love her makeup in that too. Was there an artist that did her makeup?
No, the model's name is Crystal Gomez, and she did her own makeup. She often did her own makeup. As a matter of fact, I don't think. No, that's not true. I did work with her with a makeup artist, but not this photo. She did her own.
Wow.
Very
She
good.
took care of herself. Yep. It was her own wardrobe and her own dress, and we did a few shots down there. I was trying to capture some ambient light and figure out how to light it.
Very nice.
My new toys, my new Vivitars, which are now old.
Next up, we have we got an image from the jam. I recognize this.
From the photo jam with the pond in the background.
Right. This was 2010.
Sounds
Yes,
about right.
it was 2010 Paso Robles.
You'll be excited to know next year we're going back to that location and we're bringing in tanks.
That location was actually fantastic, and I have to admit, I really was interested in doing the portfolio jam that year for the beach, and I was a little iffy on the second day, but I got better photos the second day.
Yeah.
Good.
No, it was beautiful, and she's great.
So you want to know about this image? This was lit with a silver reflector and sunlight, and that's it.
Really?
Yeah, one of the most vital pieces of equipment, in quote equipment, when I shoot on location is an assistant. And I brought one down. He was a buddy of mine. I was working at Yahoo at the time, and the guy worked with me, and he tagged along for the portfolio jam. I think it was a little bit more than he had anticipated, a little bit more work than he had anticipated. He wasn't into photography, but he was into, hanging out with me and pretty girls.
Can't imagine why.
He did an excellent job as a reflector holder, though, I have to say. I mean, it almost sounds comical, but it's really important, and it's very hard to find someone who can do it. I've had makeup artists hold a reflector, and just people who are standing around and happen to be around, and they just couldn't get the light in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was on the money, and I got great shots this year. Because he was able to take the direction and actually reflect I guess. But he's not interested in photography. He's not a photographer. That's the only time I ever worked with him was that weekend. We're still friends, but
I suspect he'll come back if you ask him.
Yeah, maybe he will. He was getting a little tired towards the end, and
the thing I love about the reflector is that it reflects the same color temperature light as the scene. So as the sun's going down and everything's wildly changing, it's still going to do the job.
Right now, not this photo, but I made the mistake once of using a gold reflector.
No, God.
Never ever use a gold reflector again. I use white quite often, but really this was silver, and this was I believe it was a 5-foot oval reflector.
Silver is what I see most often too.
Gold was sort of the thing of the 70s and 80s, and I was writing an article recently, and I put in the article, for God's sakes, put your gold reflector away. And the gal that came back, who edits the blog, comes back and goes, well, I use a gold reflector all the time, and I think it's really, really important, and I don't think you should take such a negative stance.
Oh, wow.
And honestly, she had a point, and what I realized is that I'm out on the beach, where if you take gold and multiply it times sunset, you get a nightmare.
Yes.
And if you, she's in the northern hemisphere where people are much cooler. Yeah, well, the light is much cooler. People are paler.
Mm-hmm.
And she was actually on the money for her location. So my modified advice is for people with absolutely no color in their skin, get one of those dappled ones that has a little gold in it. So I no longer curse the gold reflector, but I don't recommend it.
Not in California.
Not in California, where people are already somewhat golden.
And pleasant.
Yeah, for the record, this one was silver.
All right.
Red couch picture.
Ah, yes.
Now, we saw this in your apartment.
That's right. It is 3 feet away from me right now. I'm actually sitting at my desk, not on the couch, but I could be sitting on the couch with a laptop, as I often do.
We actually do the podcast so that we can look through Skype into people's homes. It's kind of creepy, but it's a hobby, and don't know what to tell you. Just a pretty picture. I don't know if there's any secret sauce in this one, but I like it.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about the model. She also modeled. I like working with new models, so some of them stick with it and model for many years, and some model only for a couple of months or a very short time. She modeled for about a year and a half. She doesn't really model now, although when I ask her if she would like to do a photo shoot again, she always says yes. But she's not out there actively modeling. She's taken up riding motorcycles now or something, speed bikes. I don't know.
Obvious transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would think this photo is very simple. It's just a 4-foot softbox, camera right, and there is a white reflector behind her, camera left, and you can see there's a little light hitting her right shoulder.
Yeah, I see a little glow on the hair up.
And that's from a reflector. So there's only one light used in here, and that's taken in my living room.
She looks so relaxed and natural.
This was our first shoot together ever, and this model also takes very good care of her skin. So there's very little. I Photoshop all my photos. There's very little Photoshop in here. She takes very good care of her skin. She actually had a natural glow. It just worked great with the softbox. I've encountered that a few times with various models, but she was probably the first one. She just has a great glow and great body awareness.
Nice.
She was a new model, but she was very aware of. She was awesome. I wish she would continue to model now and more. But
I love working with the new models. Now that Roxanne's got experience, I can hardly be bothered. This is terrible. Yeah.
I started brand new with you, Brian.
Did you?
Well,
Oh,
pretty
that's
much.
right.
Probably my 4th photographer I ever worked with.
Well, now I'm a speck in the wind. Okay. Love this picture. I love all pictures, just to be honest, but I love this picture as individually.
Has so much color, and it's just an outstanding representation of I'm not even sure exactly what. I guess some kind of culture.
It's
like Chinese almost.
It's Japanese.
Japanese
Meets punk.
That's what it's Japanese. Yeah. Very interesting. Where'd you get the
idea?
concept from?
okay, well, I can't steal all the thunder here. The concept actually was the models, and the model is also the makeup artist.
I like her more all the time.
So this person, Tucel is her name, Tucel Pham. She lives in San Francisco, and she and I used to run photography workshops together, where we would hire models, book a studio, put together some concept and theme, and then charge photographers to come in, and we teach them a little bit about lighting. We'd have the model ready. She'd take care of all the makeup and styling, and boom, we'd cover our expenses and maybe make a little money. Most of the time, we just cover our expenses.
I've been a model into something like that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it was fun for a while. We haven't done one in over a year. It was a meetup group that I started that actually still exists, but it's been inactive for quite. I'm embarrassed to say it's been inactive for quite some time. I keep thinking I'm going to reinvigorate it, but with the magazine that I'm doing, and I have a full-time job as a software engineer, I just don't have the time to put together the workshops.
Understandable.
I've looked at a few of the meetup groups, and I'm a member of a few of them, and I notice they do tend to kind of switch on and off, like light bulb.
We had a good run. We definitely had a good run, but we were renting a studio from another photographer who then started doing his own workshops. So a lot of the people that attended my workshops just started going to his instead, and he had a little bit easier time with it because he already had the studio, and I had to always juggle schedules and things. So
yes,
makes sense.
So anyway, he kind of stole some of it. But back to the image. This was Tucel's image because we were talking about doing a geisha theme in a Japanese garden, and she actually wanted to practice on herself. So there is a podcast, I'll have to look it up, and possibly I can send you a link to it, where she actually showed a how-to on her makeup.
Oh.
Yeah, if you can find that, we will embed it in the show notes or put a link right about here.
Okay, that would be great. She sat here in my apartment with her little flip video camera and made herself up and, described what she was doing as she was doing it, and then when she was done, we went ahead and we did a little test shoot. So I don't know what the culture actually is. The makeup was inspired by Japan, but she's Vietnamese. I don't know what the top is. It might be Vietnamese. The chopsticks were from Urban Outfitters. that are in her hair. So,
Very authentic.
Yeah.
and they're plastic, so I don't really know. It was just kind of we wanted to test out the concept. She wanted to practice doing a little bit of makeup, and we did some good. Oh, and I remember this was also after I had just bought a 7D camera, so I'd upgraded from Canon 30Ds to I bought a 7, and this was the first photo shoot I did with it.
Very nice.
And
Well, it
later
turned
I
out
bought a
great.
second 7. Yeah, I think it did turn out okay. Lighting wise, it was a large softbox from the front, and then there was a light behind her on a floor stand, just aiming at a black background.
Okay.
I am impatiently waiting for a 7D Mark II to upgrade to. It's got to come out sooner or later.
Brian, I got to tell you, I just bought a 5D Mark III.
Oh, don't. I'm building a studio this year. I can't afford one.
It's actually sad because ever since the Portfolio Jam in 2008, the first one that I went to, which was in Santa Cruz, I had at the time I was shooting with a 30D, and I had never shot on the beach before. That was my first time. That's what I said earlier, that I had some firsts with Portfolio Jam. So I was really nervous about which lens to bring because I wasn't that experienced with beach photography, and I wanted to bring 2 lenses, and I was really paranoid about changing my lens on the beach with all the sand blowing around. So I rented a second 30D from a local camera store. And after having shot with 2 cameras on that day, I returned the rental and then immediately found a second 30D on Craigslist, and from then on had been shooting with 2. When I did this shoot with 2Cell, I had just acquired my first 7D. I then sold the 2 30Ds and bought a second 7D. So currently I just upgraded to a 5D Mark III, but I only have 1. I still have the 2 7Ds, and I will be getting rid of those to get a second 5D Mark III pretty soon. So I need to shoot with 2 cameras. Since Portfolio Jam 2008, I need to have 2 identical bodies. Brian, you ruined me.
I shoot with a pair of cameras for that same reason, although my pick for this week, I have an oddity for the second camera. We'll talk about that at the end here. All right. I put this in for Roxanne because I realized she didn't need to look at boobs the whole time.
Oh, well, I actually appreciate boobs just as much or even more than the male body. I can find the beauty in pretty much any female.
Obviously an outgrowth of the previous picture we were looking at.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, this is from the workshop that we did in the Japanese garden. So we had 3 models, 2 female, 1 male, and we rented time at Hakone Gardens in Saratoga, which has a beautiful, authentic, well, I'm told it's authentic. I haven't been to Japan to actually compare. But they have a beautiful Japanese garden, and I rented it for my meetup group after it closed, and we were able to run amok in it for 3 hours.
Very nice.
I have to ask, how expensive is it to do that?
Well, it's only about $125 an hour. I think that was the price. This was 2010. I'm not sure if the price is the same, but actually, in retrospect, I don't think it was that expensive. I mean, I don't think $125 an hour is unreasonable to have the run of the park. The park was closed. We were the only ones there.
Oh yeah, go try and hold a wedding at the 7-Eleven. It won't be that cheap.
But the makeup artist who did the makeup here from the previous picture, she was getting married there later in actually 2011. So they might have given her a special price, but I don't think so. I think it's about $125 an hour.
That's really affordable.
Yeah, I keep saying I'm going to go back and do another shoot there because, oh, by the way, I was actually organizing the workshop, so I wasn't setting up the photos. I was shooting from a distance. The lighting was all natural, and I was shooting probably from about 30 yards away.
All right, we have another one from the 2010 Jam.
Yeah, this one was after the sun went down, so I can't give my silver reflector boy credit for this one. I had brought a softbox with a battery, so we pulled it out at the end, and that's it. Camera right, softbox, and tried to balance a little bit of sky in the background.
Her expression is priceless.
I have a bunch of photos of her, and all of her photos, she has beautiful expression. Actually, some of the most interesting and fun photos I got from that Portfolio Jam are of her. And simply because she just went all out with the costumes and with the with the expression. There was a shot I have of her from the previous day in a swimsuit with like a survival knife, like she just climbed out of the ocean. She was pretty cool, a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just balanced my exposure to get some sky in there. It was close to sunset, and then made the flash match.
Very nice. All right. I'll let you take this one, Roxanne.
This one is borderline. Really, I love the bondage. I haven't done it myself, but I think that the work that goes into putting the knots in, as well as the model being very uncomfortable, I'm sure, for long periods of time. This is, I really like the evenness of the knots, and it's a really interesting picture, very intriguing.
So do you end up taking and sort of meticulously repositioning the ropes and things to get everything symmetrical and nice?
Yes. This model is actually an experienced fetish and bondage model.
That would make sense.
The rope work is mine. I did all the rope work, and it was one of my first attempts at rope bondage. So I've actually been doing it, since 2010, and I changed to a more natural rope, and I do it a little bit different. But this was nylon rope, and actually it's a lot simpler than it seems. All of those loops are repeated knots, and it's very easy. This is one of the quickest pieces to do.
Really? Well, it looks very intricate.
Yeah,
it's
cool. Not. It is. I mean, it is, and it has to be it definitely has to be symmetrical. And it's not quite as uncomfortable as you would think. Although I've never been tied up, so I can't say that from experience. I can only say that from what the model said.
I really think that to fully appreciate the experience, you should let the model tie you up now and then.
I agree.
I've been threatened with that several times, and I tell them, "Well, go ahead, tie me up," and none of them actually have.
Oh, I would.
I'll send Roxanne right over.
Don't tell my husband.
Okay, lovely car.
Yeah, Quattroporte. This is a beautiful car. So this is actually a photo shoot that I did for a cheerleading team that was out of Pacifica, the Pacifica Islanders, and Pacifica Island Glamours. They are cheerleaders for a Northern California football league football team, and I was hired to do their bikini shoot, which involved cars and motorcycles and various things. So we were just about sunset. The backlighting on the car is pretty much natural sunlight. I do have a strobe on the model, and to light the inside of the car, I have one of those Vivitars that I used on the very first photo that we talked about, is on a light stand on the opposite side of the car, shining in to light the dashboard and the steering wheel. So I was really afraid to lose all that detail in there, and I just needed to throw a light in there.
That's what I was going to say. It's very detailed.
Yeah, and I carefully positioned my composition angle so that you couldn't see the light. You couldn't see the flash, the bare flash. It's actually behind the post that goes between the front window and the back window.
I see that.
So I positioned myself carefully there to get that. And that was at in a parking lot near a beach in Pacifica.
Very cool car.
So, related photo, I grabbed the next one also. Obviously, same set. Or at least it looks to be from the same set.
It is. It's the same set, same day, a little bit earlier. There's a softbox on a stand with a battery pack, and of course I have an assistant there, but I wasn't balancing sunlight. I was just using electric light outside.
Where do you come up with the cars?
The cheerleading dance coordinator actually got the cars. So there were several high-end cars. There were several high-end motorcycles. It was a very interesting shoot. I can send you a link to the whole set, although I'm not sure if it's still online, other than these that were in my portfolio from Model Mayhem.
Yeah, if you're in a major city, getting a whole bunch of exotic cars is easy. You can literally just Craigslist, and they will come out of the woodwork, or you can rent them. But most of us live far away from that world.
Well, in Silicon Valley, there are lots of high-end cars as well. I mean, let's face it, I pass Ferraris and Teslas all the time as I go to work.
Oh, there's one of the new Model S Teslas that's wandered past my house a couple of times. I think it's stalking me. It's a beautiful car.
This photo shoot, I actually almost lost the 7D. There are photos that are not in this set, but from the same shoot that didn't involve cars that were more on the ocean. Mm-hmm. And I was shooting with two camera bodies, as we talked about a little earlier, and one of them got completely submerged in salt water of the Pacific.
Ooh.
I have disassembled many cameras.
It survived. I had to throw away the battery grip and replace the battery grip, but the camera itself survived. I used it for another 1.5 years, and then the battery connection wasn't so hot, and I sent it into Canon for service, and they were able to repair it. It's been perfect since.
Nice.
So
I've had nothing but good experiences with the Canon service, folks.
Mm-hmm.
I love this picture. I love them all, but this one in particular, it is such an unorthodox pose.
I don't know if I can tell you too much about this one. I don't want to lose the lease on my apartment because I was up on the roof where I shouldn't be.
Oh, an apartment much like yours, obviously.
Yes. So this model is very interesting. First of all, she's an Olympic gold medalist.
Oh, really?
In what?
In equestrian vaulting, which means she does gymnastics on the back of a moving live horse.
Seems easy.
Not a gymnastics pommel horse that they do spins, that rubber. Actually, a horse with a mane, neigh and all that stuff, galloping around in a circle. And she does handstands on it and backflip. I mean, she does gold medal 2008. So
I'm really glad to hear that she doesn't do that on dead horses.
Yes, I'm so glad they're the live ones. I think the dead one got kicked out of the Olympics this year.
Well, I was put in touch with her from a project manager that I was working with at a software company who changed to a new company. He goes, hey, I started working with this girl, and she has done some modeling, and she's in really great shape, and she's done some gymnastics. Maybe you want to shoot her. I'll put you guys in touch. So I looked her up online, and I saw all this fantastic gymnastics work from her. And then I also saw like this, pretty typical fashion photography, her out in a high grass field with very soft lighting. And I said, she's kind of got a superhero body to me or something.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I ordered this cat suit, and when she showed up for the photo shoot, I said, here, you're going to wear this. Okay. And I had no idea how athletic and fit she actually was. Before this, we were shooting on the ground. This is on my roof. And she goes, hey, maybe I can do a high kick. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, do a high kick. And she put her head, like her foot completely over her head, which amazed me, and I said, wow, this girl is great. So this is on my rooftop. I did light this with a strobe as well as sunlight. I do that a lot. I do balance natural light with strobes so I can work on positioning and stuff. And just the look on her face was fierce. You can see the softbox reflected in her cat suit, basically. That's most of the white highlights.
It is fantastic. So next year when we pull out the tank, you got to bring her out. We're looking at tanks and Jeeps and Deuce and a Halfs and things out on the Paso Robles property.
I'll see if I can bring her down. She lives
awesome.
in the Bay Area here.
That show would be neat.
Okay, we brought this up just because we had to ask you, what kind of body paint is that?
Okay. So we have to go back a little bit. When I first started photography, I wasn't interested in doing photography at all. I was working as a music teacher in a school with a young woman who was also a music teacher who used to do this naked body painting thing on the weekends with her boyfriend.
Okay.
I started designing website for them and doing things to help them get their business promoted and help them get gigs. This was on the East Coast, so this is New York City and New Jersey. And they had absolutely no photos for their website of their work. So I went out with my little Nikon Coolpix point-and-shoot 3.2 megapixel camera in 2003 and started taking photos of their body painting to put on their website. Needless to say, the photos were terrible, and I did a little bit of research on how I could take better pictures, and that's when I bought my first DSLR, and that's when it all started, about 2005. This photo was actually taken with a 30D. This is a few years old, 2008. You can see the watermark. And this was taken in Las Vegas. The body painters, I moved to California since then, and the body painters moved to Las Vegas. They now live in Vegas.
Well, the texture on the body paint is fairly spectacular.
Is it
It's
sorry.
No, go on.
Is
It's,
it like a glitter paint?
no, it is latex body paint, very thick, with a layer of art room glitter sprinkled on top.
Okay, well,
You-
that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yes, if you
I
check out Brian's portfolio or mine, you can see that he painted me, and we did a one with bright pink latex paint in strategically placed areas, kind of a swirl design, and then he put purple and pink aquarium rocks over it.
That would
Wow.
be this picture right here. We'll insert the picture right
Yes.
there. And anyway, just had to bring that one up. Love the perspective of this next picture.
Are those nylons, or did she wrap ribbon around her legs?
Those are actually fancy nylons.
Those are really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, this shot was done, again, with small strobes. I can't remember if I was using one of those Vivitars that I talked about earlier or if it was a Canon flash. Obviously, it's off camera. This was in a hotel room, and I was shooting a set for Zivity.com, which is a website that has these sexy nude photo sets that people vote on, and the
It's
votes
kind of
get
a
the model some money.
Profit sharing kind of thing.
What's that?
Profit sharing kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't really do it much anymore because it didn't really work out for me. I had a number of sets on there. Some of them were fairly popular, and it just seemed like a lot of work, and it wasn't a lot of money coming back to me. So I don't really do it anymore.
That's
But
been
that's
my-
what this set was for.
what
And yeah,
I've
those
heard
are
from a lot of
actual
folks.
the nylons. The ribbon pattern is in the nylon itself. So
Well, it's a very neat picture, although it definitely has that vintage feel because it's not like photoshopped out in the back or anything.
Yeah, it's nice.
I just did a vintage hotel shoot last week.
Nice.
It was turned out very neat.
Roxanne will be on Amazon.com ordering up a set of those nylons. Here in
I
just a
will
minute.
be.
awesome.
I'm
Okay.
already there now.
Favorite picture, last picture of the group. Give me the story behind this one.
Okay, this one is really interesting. So the makeup artist that did the Japanese work, she's a good friend of mine, and she was looking for a new job. So I invited her to one of my company's parties. We had just a little wine party, and I invited her to come down and meet some folks. The male model in this image is actually a flight software engineer. He writes software for that flies on a satellite.
And that's his real beard, isn't it?
That was his real beard and mustache. So I introduced him to Tucel at the party, and I said, "This is Corey, and we have to do a photo shoot with his facial hair." And so he actually termed it himself as villainous facial hair. So I said, we have to make him a villain.
Yes. Obviously.
Obviously, exactly. So we went ahead and we were working with a clothing company in San Francisco called Distractions that does this steampunk type Burning Man-ish themed clothing. And we had everything all set. I was trying to book a model for it, a female model, and we got Jillian there lying down. And we had a date set, and we got the clothes. They were on board with it. I had to leave them a ridiculous deposit for the clothes, but they were willing to work with us. To sell the makeup artist who did the Japanese stuff was on board doing the styling and makeup. But we couldn't get Jillian for that weekend, so we had to postpone for 2 weeks. And that meant we also lost the clothing, because that was Burning Man weekend, or the weekend right before Burning Man, and Distractions was like, you can't borrow our clothes that weekend. We need to have everything in the store for sale.
Mm-hmm.
So we scrambled and found another designer out of Oakland. The guy actually has Dark Beauty magazine. He's a designer, and he has his own magazine as well. And he let us borrow the clothes and didn't charge us a ridiculous deposit. He just gave it to us on the honor system. We returned everything in good condition. And he helped us style out the shoot. What you can't see in the picture is she's lying on railroad tracks.
I
Oh.
thought that might be the case.
Yep, and there are several images in the series. And so he's looking at his pocket watch, as if he's waiting for the train. Corey has never modeled before or since, and the day after the shoot, he shaved the mustache and beard.
Oh.
Although he does have another one back, but he looks more like a 70s cop than a villain. So I think we're going to do a 70s cop themed shoot with him.
Well, this
Put him in a short
is
sleeve, short sleeve blue shirt with a thin blue tie and a badge, and I think we're going to do something a little bit in that theme with him. He's
Yeah.
a great guy. Never modeled before, He just has a great personality. He totally had a lot of fun this day, and we got a great shot, great shoot out of him. So this is also light with a softbox.
I'd be his victim any day.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is a print it, put it on the wall. Really, really fine.
Very cool.
Yeah, the people at our office love it. So I work with him still at a company. We build satellites and do software for satellite imaging. And I work on the grounds team. I write software that actually people on the ground use, and he writes software that flies with the satellite on the satellite itself. So we still work together, and we're definitely going to do another shoot. I think 70s cop is the next theme, because his beard is not long and it's not curly. He doesn't have the thick mustache, but he definitely has facial hair that he can play with. So
neat,
excellent. So, talking all this gear stuff, we are doing a gear pick of the week with each person. I'll go first, and we were talking earlier about having that second body, and as I shoot mostly on the beach, it's really, really important. And I'm not buying a second DSLR as my second camera. I'm going to be picking up an Canon EOS M. It is a compact little camera, much like the Micro Four Thirds cameras that are becoming a popular item, except it's APS-C and accepts EOS lenses, all in a little tiny camera. I'll probably pick this up midsummer, and we'll review it on the show as we go. But check it out over at Amazon.com. It uses a special series of little lenses, but there's an adapter that lets you put L-glass right on the front. Weighs nothing, fits in the smallest pocket of your camera bag, and it gets you redundancy. So check it out over on Amazon, and I will let Roxanne go for the next pick.
Well, as a model, I think that one of the most important things to bring to a shoot is double-sided fabric tape. And you can find it pretty much anywhere, but since we're going with Amazon right now, you can find it on Amazon. Double-sided tape is really great for fabric, for wardrobe malfunctions, even on the beach sometimes when you're trying to get that swimsuit that's just a little tiny thing to be just right in the right spot. And that's my pick of the week.
Rich, up to you.
All right. I'm going to go with something a little different. Like you, Brian, I shoot with two bodies, especially on location. So I'm going to talk about Black Rapid Double R strap. It's a camera strap that fits over your shoulders and back like a harness, and it allows you to walk around with two camera bodies attached to you at all times. So if you're not familiar with the Black Rapid system, the cameras actually work. It's not like a traditional camera strap that just goes around your neck. The camera strap actually allows the camera to slide on the strap itself. It's a little hard to explain without a visual, but if you check it out, it's a good way to carry two camera bodies at once. And they would hang, at your hips on the left and right side, and you just pick up whichever camera you want to use, and you just slide it up the strap, bring it to your eye, take a picture, let it down, and grab the other one. So I use it all the time on location shoots. It's really just something that's
very handy.
I can see these pick of the weeks are going to be really expensive for me, because sooner or later I'm going to end up buying each of them. And after the first year of the show, that's going to be a budget buster.
Yeah, the Black Rapid R strap is not the cheapest strap there is. They do also have single versions too, so you can just have one strap. I have one of those as well. I have a single strap that goes across your chest, messenger style. So it'll go on your left shoulder and come down to the right side if you're right-handed. And then I have the double R strap, which I really like. I really use it. I use it all the time.
Excellent.
So we have a listener email, even though it's episode 1. Anonymous writes, "Love the concept of the show. How can I be showcased?" And it's not hard. All you need to do is send an email to modelphotographyshowcase@gmail.com, or click the link on the screen right now, and it will open up an email attachment. Send us your link to your work, like Model Mayhem or One Model Place, or just attach pictures and send to us. We'll review them, and we will make a decision where you fit in the lineup if we can use an interview from you.
So, Rich Sermonello, what would be the best way for listeners to follow your work?
Probably through either my website, which is richsermonello.com. It's just my first and last name put together. Of course, you'd probably need to see it rather than hear it to know how to get there. Or on Facebook, but it's also the same name. You'd have to look me up there. Or you can also find me through volomagazine.com.
Wonderful.
Which is the magazine that I'm editing. So those are probably the three main ways to get in touch with me through photography. Of course, I have a Model Mayhem account too. So you can Google me, and you'll find all of those things, I believe.
Excellent. So if anybody'd like to give us their thoughts on the show, we're accepting both positive and negative comments. We would love to hear from you at modelphotographysshowcase@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next week.